ado, could you please welcome to the stage with me host and radio personality Loni Swain, and she'll be accompanied by Chef Walter Harris. Wait,
Hello.
wait.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
I'm Loni Swain. I am coming to you live from Los Angeles. So, good morning in Los Angeles if you're a West Coaster. Good afternoon if you're on the East Coast or Central Time, Middle America. We're glad to have you join us and spend your Saturday with us. I am originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, so I love to cook and I love to eat good food. So it's only fitting that I be hosting and moderating this segment about feeding our communities. Chef, thank you so much for joining us, Chef Walter. And before we get into what you're up to right now, tell us a bit about how you got into the culinary world.
Well, first and foremost, my mother takes pride in cooking. So I was that kid that kind of sit in the kitchen, just watch her cook, everything soul food oriented, if you will. I've been in the industry, just in the service industry for about, my goodness, 18 years now. I started busting tables way up and just kind of learned things here and there. I never actually went to culinary school, but I more so just jumped in the field and worked, hands-on more so. What I'm doing now is more Asian meets American. It's been called on several occasions Asian soul food, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Took a little trip to Japan back in 2017, and it changed my life. I've had a fascination for the Japanese culture since I was 9 years old. So anime, manga, and all that good stuff. Went there, came back, and gave my job of 12 years a 2-month notice and took a leap. I really didn't know what I was doing. But kind of worked back around to opening a fast casual, build your own noodle bowl, like ramen noodle bowl style restaurant. It took the 2 years that I was off from that job to kind of build a menu. I had a couple connects I met in Japan that I ran some recipes by. Took on a consultant team of chefs too, and we kind of ran ideas back and forth, and it just turned into something, well, I'm a little biased, but I would say great, but
right.
Kind of all just
but it's like a marriage of all of your interests, the cooking and your fascination with Japanese culture and cuisine, and kind of putting it all together.
Yeah, all came back in one circle overall, so definitely have a passion for it.
Love it. Love it. And now you launched Noodle Station right as the pandemic started.
Yes. Several of my friends will pick on me about that one.
So tell us how you've adapted and how that has impacted your business or your business model as a whole.
So it was definitely a challenge. I tell you that we opened in February, so a good month and a half or so before everything kind of went crazy. We had a couple game plans with different marketing crews. We had actually set up and planned for our grand opening, which we never officially had. So we kind of cut back on all that to reserve as much funds as possible. I originally hired 18 staff members. Usually do that in the service industry to kind of see who works out. Certain people, some people don't show or it doesn't work out entirely for them. Which was the most challenging part. Once everything shut down, we went to the whole takeout scenario. I had to pretty much furlough about 85% of my staff, which that was just the most challenging part overall.
Right.
We stayed open. We kept them on as long as we could. Just couldn't manage it. Went down to just me. I took a pay cut myself. Actually, I didn't get paid for a couple months. And signed up for every to-go service known to man. We were on Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, delivery dudes. And we were averaging about $350 a day with just me being here. And we made enough to pay bills to keep ourselves in the game. That with a few reserves, and started to pick back up. I made it a point to stay on social media as often as possible. We posted something every day. We started a charity donation where we, every $100 we took in, we provided 10 bowls to the local hospitals in the area. And that kind of put us on the map too. We started taking a lot of funds for that. I was able to bring in 2 additional staff members, and we just kept moving from there. Just kept pivoting as much as we could, and started selling hand sanitizer at one point too, just stay in the game. And yeah. Once we got the okay to open 50%, things changed. People started coming back out, and we're still in the game.
Yeah, nice. And that's the part about entrepreneurship that most people don't realize the behind the scenes, the gritty, the grime, on social media. It's like, yeah, being a business owner is wonderful, but sometimes it involves a pay cut and lots of sacrifice. And so I'm glad that you mentioned those aspects that people have to kind of remember. When you're the owner, you have to jump in there and kind of take on all the roles if you need to.
You got to do what you got to do. Definitely, failure is not an option first and foremost, or it shouldn't be. And whatever you got to do, you got to do. Definitely.
Yeah. Now, did you feel that it was more difficult for you to get into the industry and or be respected in the industry not having gone to culinary school?
Yes, I got some pushback originally. I didn't even call myself a chef for the longest. I just got a little pushback in that sense. People would ask, well, did you go to culinary school? And I would say, no. How can you call yourself a chef? Well, I'm cooking, so
right.
People like what I make, and I don't, so that was a little bit of a mental thing to kind of get over. But at this point now, I mean, everyone who's come through, for the most part, we have great reviews of the food. Again, I'm biased, but the food is delicious. But yeah, that and getting started too. When I took the leap from my previous job, no one really took us seriously. Me and my partner that I brought on, we couldn't find a location originally. They wanted to know if we had a location, if we were a franchise. The moment we said no, we just couldn't get anybody to really follow through or show us any locations. We ended up taking on a consultant team, strategic hospitality group out of Miami. And the moment we brought them on, within a week, we found the location we're at now. So it was more so, yeah, we had some difficulties with people taking us serious. A bit of a struggle in that sense. It's kind of like you can't move forward if you don't have that something established, which kind of threw me off a little bit. I even had phone calls with different shopping plazas, and they would ask, well, do you have another location? No. Okay. And then at that point, the conversation wouldn't move any more than that. So yeah, definitely some difficulties with just being new in the game in general, but it didn't stop us. I'm a big believer myself in manifestation, and putting whatever I want out into the universe and bringing it back, and just kept pushing, and kind of worked out from there. Found the perfect location overall, and yeah, really, really, really enjoy what I do. Say that.
So when did you officially start calling your chef, and what was yourself a chef, and what was the transition? What made you decide, okay, today I'm a chef, and at this point I hadn't been?
When I took the reign in the kitchen, and it was just me, and I was able to kind of fine tune everything, and all of our ingredients came out the same way, all the bowls and everything were consistent. At that point, I was like, you know what? I love this. I love doing this. At that point, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll just let it be. Everyone was calling me a chef at that point. I was like, okay, Chef Harris sounds good. It's a great title to have, I guess. So at that point, yeah, once I got to the point, it was primarily just me in the kitchen, and things were coming out. Actually, when I sat down to a bowl myself after a couple months of us being open, after everything happened, it was just me in the kitchen, and I've eaten noodles for 2 years on and off. So kind of, not that I'm over noodles by any means,
right?
But
never.
Now trying something after kind of tweaking the menu over that time period, and thinking to myself, wow, this is really good. So I'm my worst critic overall. That was when I felt confident calling myself a chef.
Okay.
I took it all in.
And so I'm sure there are certain things that are more complex because it was during a pandemic, but I was going to ask, what has been the biggest lesson or some of the bigger lessons in transitioning from working in someone else's establishment to your own?
Well, comfort, I guess, overall. Working for someone else, knowing you're going to get a paycheck regularly, that comfort aspect, but you can't really get anywhere without taking a risk. And I know that 100%. So that would be the biggest thing. There's been, certain pay periods throughout the previous months where I just couldn't take a check, and it is what it is. I'd rather pay the staff that I have now or pay a couple other bills instead of, paying myself. And those things you have to do, you have to sacrifice at times, or when you get that text message from all your friends, hey, we're going here, we're doing this. And you're like, well, no, I have to close my restaurant and I want to go home and go to sleep so I can be back there early morning the next day. Those little things they can be a little challenging. I'm at the point now where I'm focused. I know what I have to do. I know what my goals are, and I'm staying motivated in that sense. So, but definitely just those other aspects of life that you have to kind of put on hold, right forward for your dreams.
And you mentioned some of the obstacles in finding a location or being taken seriously. And part of the conversation over the weekend was around funding. How did you go about funding for your business? And is that something that you can maybe offer some advice to aspiring entrepreneurs for?
Yes. So, luckily for me, when I left I worked at a place called Dada Restaurant in Delray Beach for 12 years. So I did pretty well there, and I had enough money to save to be comfortable with myself for about a good year. And I just took a leap. I didn't have any of the funding actually for the restaurant, but I knew it was something I wanted to do. And I threw it out there. All my connects, I met a gentleman at the restaurant maybe 11 years prior who mentioned, if you're ever interested in opening a restaurant, let me know. I mean, I love what you guys do here. You have a great crew. Just let me know. And I actually reached out to him and threw it out there. We had dinner at his place, and before I even told him what the idea was, he leaped. He said, I'm in, 100%. Mitchell's eldest.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, all right. So he helped launch everything. We actually took an SBA loan out originally for the build out of the restaurant and all that. And honestly, I maxed out a bunch of credit cards. Took as much cash flow as I could, throw it into the restaurant, and then I mean the money's out there for sure. I mean you can't let the ego take over with asking or putting your wants out there. You have to capitalize on whatever aspect you have available. Whether it's I mean I had a lot of my family as well. My sister who lives in Sacramento in California. She mentioned she would be willing to contribute to help us along. And I with my ego, I was against that entirely. But again, there's always options. There's always things that you can put out there to get some type of funding, or so there's always a way overall, I would say.
And it's a beautiful thing when someone says they're going to do something, and when you do reach out, they do it, because this sounds like such a great little story where it's like it could have went in a bunch of different directions. I didn't know where it was going to go when you called him and said, hey, I want to take you up on that offer, but to come through, like that's such a great thing. So that's awesome. Is your ultimate goal to franchise? I know that some people had asked if you were going to do that.
I'm not against it per se. I at this point, I want to keep the quality as great as possible for a fast casual style restaurant. So more so maybe a chain, maybe open a couple and keep maybe myself and a crew, build a crew to go in and just make sure everything's ran properly. Kind of like I think Chipotle does that for the most part. Something along those lines as opposed to franchising. But I'm not against it. Definitely not against it. I think we have a really good concept. I get asked that question all the time whenever someone walks in. Is this a franchise? But no, it's the first station. So not against it, but more so the whole chain aspect is going to keep the quality all the same.
Or would you decide to diversify and open a different type of restaurant? Or have you thought that far ahead in those terms?
I have about 23 different concepts in a folder.
Wow.
Right now. Different concept ideas. I also have the noodle station concept that we have now. I want to do something a little smaller. I think Miami might be the perfect area for it. Just a couple, kind of like old school, like if you were in Japan, just a little bar top with maybe 4 bar stools and some stir fries, stuff like that, and actual noodle bowls. So I definitely have a ton of ideas. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Maybe too many ideas actually.
Now, one of the things that we have noticed is that veganism and vegetarianism have become more popular in the Black community. I personally am a vegetarian, part-time vegan. How does Noodle Station accommodate us vegetarians and vegans? And is that something that you had to take into consideration in opening your restaurant?
It definitely was something to take into consideration. My original goal was to have every single item on our menu gluten-free, at least, and have a ton of different vegetarian, vegan options. Right now, I mean, all of our vegetables are gluten-free, so that helps in that sense. And we do tofu, which I do a barbecue tofu. I have a sweet and spicy version, and that's one thing I can't keep in house now. We go through so much tofu.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I also make a vegan, vegetarian, vegan and gluten-free sweet potato, green pepper, veggie broth, which has pretty much every vegetable man in it, and it's really good. I go through the process.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, I cook that for about 6 hours overall. So my one thing was to have a broth that had a flavor. So a lot of people complain about that. They have vegan options, but they're just not super flavorful. So I struggled with that for a while, just trying different aspects, and we have a really good broth now. I can say that 100%. We definitely cater to the vegans here 100%. So
nice. And just overall, eating healthier is something that in the Black community we kind of have struggled with. A lot of our health issues can come from the foods that we eat. How can we encourage the Black community to eat healthier? And I think part of it you touched on is just making it taste better potentially. But any other ideas about how to encourage healthier eating in the Black community?
that is a good question. I would say me starting off, it was a little difficult with trying new things. Like bok choy, for example. I never tried bok choy going back maybe 3 years ago. Bok choy is very good for you, very super healthy.
One of my favorites.
Oh yeah. So I would say maybe stepping out of the box and trying something a little different. That you're not not keen on. Not your usual go-to would be the first step. And then maybe doing a little research in that sense on things that. A lot of this stuff is rather cheap too that you can purchase. That's good for you. So yeah, just overall, just breaking that comfort zone and stepping outside the box a little bit, trying different things might be a good way to keep to healthy eating overall.
Do you have any ideas or personal takes on making more traditional foods healthier in like preparation or things that we can do even at home, maybe like how to make a traditional recipe a little healthier?
That's a great question. Wow, goodness. Me personally, I'm all about not fully cooking, going the whole al dente style of cooking. We're keeping a lot of the nutrients in our vegetables, not fully cooking them all the way through overall. Just incorporating, there's so many different, I struggled when I originally started working on the menu for Noodle Station, but I did a lot of Googling and I found a lot of different recipes online, a lot of different healthy oriented recipes online, where, that helped me kind of tailor the menu to more of a healthy style eating. I go really light on my oils, my salt and peppers. It's more about keeping everything fresh, So something like that, just maybe, just maybe doing some research in that sense. Me personally, I have a ton of different recipes, all healthy oriented. I have a great barbecue tofu noodle bowl, recipe that's super healthy and it's delicious. That's a ton of flavor at the same time. But I piece that together after just doing a lot of different research and trying different items out. So I'm not sure if I answered your question properly, but I
yes. Yeah. Now, one of the things that I immediately thought of when you said less oil, the air fryer, that's like the biggest thing right now.
Yeah.
In your opinion, do you think that's a healthier alternative to, say, the fried foods and the things that we typically might throw in a whole bunch of grease and, that gives it its good flavor? Yeah. Now we can kind of transition to, like, say, an air fryer or doing just ways of preparing things a little differently.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on that?
I think so. I think it's definitely a healthier option. I do a lot of, I haven't really played around with air fryers myself. So I do a lot of baking, the tofu I bake, the roasted sweet potatoes that I bake in the oven, keep it very light on the oils and the seasonings and that sense. So that's a great way. That or baking in general, or even grilling to kind of, if you're grilling something and let the excess juices or oils or seasonings kind of drain off in that sense. Those are great ways to try to keep towards the whole healthy eating. Okay. Definitely I actually have an air fryer on its way, so I can play around with it, but I haven't really played around with air fryers just yet. So
Okay, so we'll have to check back in with you after you get your air fryer and you experiment a little bit.
exactly.
And earlier you mentioned that social media has been a big part of your advertising and getting the name out there for Noodle Station and staying afloat. What about, have you thought of Food Network or different television series that highlight chefs and things like that, or like Bobby Flay?
Oh man, oh man. Well, I'd be a little terrified to be on one of those shows, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, but I do it 100%. But
Hmm.
I've actually done a couple different pre-recording things where we've taught kids how to make ramen noodles from scratch.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
I did a cooking course for a month. It was every Monday for 2 hours, and that just
Hmm.
ended about a month ago, and that went really well too. Again,
Hmm.
kind of get out of my comfort zone, being in front of the camera like that.
Hmm.
Definitely not against something along those lines. It would be great. I mean, even if it didn't go well, even if I flunked the first course or whatever it was, there's no such thing as bad advertising, especially if you're on TV. It goes a long way.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, social media
Absolutely.
is huge in that sense. So that's one big thing
Mhm.
I'd recommend to any entrepreneur: just keep relevant, just keep in the mainstream. Whether it's something small or whatever, just say, hey, hello, hey, we're still here. I did a lot of that too. So
Mhm.
it goes a long way.
Nice. Mhm. So I've asked specifically, is there something that you personally feel like you're working on that I haven't inquired about? Maybe a cookbook. What is your 5-year plan, or what the dream? Because I think that a lot of times, especially as entrepreneurs, we have a lot of those dreams, and then once we knock one off, we're kind of like working towards the next thing. Is that the case for you?
I so I definitely want to open up. I definitely want to open up a couple different noodle stations, as many as I can. Fine dining style restaurant, um, and well, again, I have about 23 different style concepts that I want to open. But I think Noodle Station, I think it's a great concept. I think that it's different. It's kind of outside the box in that sense. So focusing on opening as many of those as I can, just to kind of get that, get that. I don't even know how to. I don't even know how to really express myself. I get so excited when I think about that.
Hmm.
We were actually approached about franchising the restaurant at one point, but it was right before everything kind of went shut down. But I wanted to fine tune everything first, so I kind of put that on the back burner. It's definitely my passion. I really love being here. I love what I do. So
Hmm.
I would say focusing on Noodle Station, getting that up and running, opening as many as I can, and then to start to open up and just bring that level of quality back to the restaurant. Not that it's gone, but to bring another level of quality back to the restaurant style,
Hmm.
or fast casual style dining. Has been the goal since we opened.
Hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, the brain's all over the
Oh
place today.
no,
I apologize for that. But,
no need to apologize. You're great. Um, so if someone is listening or watching and they have aspirations for, say, opening a restaurant, what do you think are some of the things that they should have in place and start doing to prepare kind of a runway before taking on the the venture of like opening their own business or restaurant specifically? Because a lot of people say that the restaurant industry can be difficult. So what are some things you did to prepare?
so I definitely put time aside and build a business plan. That's huge. Even if you don't feel like you need one, it's really important. My first run, the business plan didn't go all that well. So I actually
Mhm.
hired a company. I took some of the last bit of funds I had left over, and I actually hired a company, and they built out the base of it for me. And then I entered all my numbers and projections and stuff along those lines. So that's huge. You definitely have to have a business plan, and then you have to continuously work on that business plan based on the facts. After you start to generate some type of funds, kind of work that
Mhm.
back into it. So that's huge. Staying consistent, with your goals and what you're looking to do, timelines and all that good stuff. Also, getting up earlier. Just getting up as early as you can, starting the day. That's a big one. That was a struggle for me, working in the restaurant industry. I mean, the restaurant I worked at before, they closed at 2 a.m. So by the time I got home and wine and all that, it was like, close to 5, and you don't wake up till 11 or 12. So getting up early as you can, starting the day, and starting the day and giving yourself a little time to, decompress from everything from the day prior. Having a cup of coffee, sitting outside, relaxing for a bit. I do a lot of meditation, or I'm trying to get back into doing more meditation too. Stuff along those lines, just kind of silencing the brain, and then establishing what you want for the day, how your day's going to go. That goes a long way. So those are some key factors that work for me. Like I said, the business plan is huge. And then the original concept, Noodle Station, actually had changed about 5 or 6 different times, because I wasn't opposed to feedback from people in general. I didn't take it personally, and even though it was my baby, I wasn't upset or anything. I listened to them. I took in the information and made tweaks here and there, and now it's the best for the people, I believe. So you can't be entirely biased in that sense with your idea. Even though it's your baby, you have to listen to people and take positive, take the criticism, as positively as you can. So those are some things that definitely help me, with my business and all.
That's great advice. And I think that last one is something that I think is probably difficult for a lot of people to do, is taking that constructive criticism and not only taking it, but taking it receptively and applying it to it. So that's really good. Before we wrap up, we know that hunger rates are rising in our community as the pandemic keeps on. What can the Black culinary community do to support people during this time, and how can our audience support that work?
Well, there are so many little charities locally to all of us that we can help by donating. Whether it's our time, whether it's a couple meals a night, all that stuff goes a long way. There's one that we're actually working with on the 22nd of this month called Hope South Florida. We're partnering up with Deja Blue out of Parkland, where I think it's a total of 300 people we're trying to feed. So we're going to be in charge of feeding 100 people and just taking care of the other 200. But there's so many different little charities that you can, a simple Google search, you can find something that you can, people are definitely looking for volunteers. I know right now it's kind of difficult for everything going on with, COVID-19 and all, but, there's a lot of stuff you can do, a lot of things you can, you can contribute to by your time or just spreading the word, maybe communicating in that sense. So.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just a rough time right now in general, trying to be out there and giving back with everything going on. But there are definitely ways to do it. So.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Chef Walter. We appreciate it. Congratulations on Noodle Station and everything that you have going on. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And we're speaking of mental health and meditation and things like that. We're going to get into some of those things as the event continues today. And Kwana, will hand it off back to you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.